All right, guys, welcome. I am going to go deep today on the life insurance objection field guide. And, you know, this is specifically for PNC agencies that are trying to cross sell life insurance. And so if that doesn't fit what you do, like if you're a life insurance only agent, the sell's different. Like you're buying inbound leads with PNC agencies. What we're doing is we're taking the auto insurance leads, the homeowners insurance leads, and the book of PNC customers, and we essentially cross sell to those customers. And so the sell is very unique. The sell is very nuanced. And the objections that we cover in this training are very nuanced. They're very specific for the PNC world. Now, I was a producer for about 6 years. In my tenure, I was doing, over 200 life insurance policies a year, as well as, auto and home, the PNC. And I was doing over 100,000 in annual life insurance premium. And knowing what to say when objections come up gave me confidence. And so the goal of this training is to provide not only a framework that you can think through in terms of objections going forward, that regardless of whatever objection you get, whether it's a life insurance objection, maybe it's an objection on auto insurance, this 4-step framework will help you with whatever objection you do get. And we're going to get into specific scripts and questions that you can ask so that you can leave this training with a whole new set of tools that you can use to cross sell more life insurance. And instead of, getting an objection and that completely stopping your conversation, or you not knowing where to go next, and so you're now communicating uncertainty to the customer, you're going to have this guide where it's going to tell you exactly what to say and where to go next so that doesn't happen to you. Because here's the deal. I think about this a lot, but like what we're about to get into, these are proven scripts. Like this isn't just something random. Like this is proven stuff that works for producers specifically, customer service people specifically, that are on the front lines of a PNC agency. These objections work because I've tried them, and in coaching over 600 agencies, like this is the stuff that gets our team confident in selling life insurance. And, when your team knows exactly where to go next and what to say with each objection, they're confident. And when we can communicate confidence and certainty to our customers and prospects, that's when people buy. I talk about this a lot, but think about this. Like I could give you a perfect script, which in a lot of ways, these are really good scripts, and you're going to see why. And I'm going to explain the psychology behind them, but I could give you a perfect script. Okay. And it's a perfect script, but if you don't have an ability to deliver the script confidently, you have low confidence, you probably won't sell anything. On the flip side, I could give you a broken script, a broken process. But if you have confidence and you can deliver confidently, you will sell more with a broken script and low confidence than you would with a perfect script and low confidence. I think I said that. I think you guys get what I'm saying. High confidence sells, low confidence does not. But in a lot of ways, guys, confidence for me comes from knowing something. And a lot of y'all don't know what you would say to these objections. And so that's why you're not confident. But think about if you knew exactly what question to ask. If you knew what question to ask after that first question that you ask. And if these, after that, you knew how to keep the conversation forward rather than sitting in that objection. That's what this training is going to provide for us. Okay, so guys, let me be straight for you. Objections come up, yes. This guide will give you what you need to handle these objections. Like this stuff works. And it's what helped me, get to a high level in my production as a producer. But what I've found and what I've realized is that the best insurance producers don't handle that many objections. They prevent them instead. Most objections, you probably know this, aren't real. They're knee-jerk responses. The customer's not necessarily telling you no, they're just telling the situation, the timing, based on their current beliefs, no. Well, you think about that. This guide's going to give you what to say when you're already in the hole, when they've already given you that objection. Because if you think about it, when you've gotten that objection, you're kind of already behind. And so knowing what to say in those moments so you don't completely lose the sell or lose the opportunity, that's going to be valuable and you're going to need this. But what really changed my business, what really changed my ability to sell life insurance in the P&C world, it wasn't getting really good at objections. It wasn't. It was building a system that made objections rare. It was building a system that got ahead of objections, that prevented objections. And, we're not going to go into that right now, more on that later, but I want you to think about that a lot of the times in this industry, as producers, as customer service people, and even sometimes as agency owners, we are setting ourselves up for objections by what we're saying, what we're asking, or when we're saying or asking it. Okay. And at the end of the day, you don't have to get objections to sell life insurance. Okay. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get started. It's very important to define what an objection is. When I feel like I can define and make sense of what an objection is and simplify that down, it helps me know how to handle the objection. Now, I think sometimes we think too generally about objections. We don't define this key thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to break objections into two categories. We've got early objections and we've got late objections. Early objections, think of these as obstacles. Late objections, think of these as objections. Okay, and so early objections, they happen before you've built value, before you've done any sort of selling. They happen before the price. Okay, so if you are pivoting into life insurance and it's just right at your pivot, right after your question, they hit you with, "Oh, I have it through work." That is an early objection. That is an obstacle. Why? Because we haven't even talked about what this life insurance policy will do. We haven't even sold the value of the policy, and we have not given them the price. And so the way that we would handle that obstacle, that early objection, is different than the one that we would handle after the value's been given and after the price has been given, which is a late objection. Late objections happen after you've given the price, after you've tried to sell them, after you've gone through some sort of presentation where you're trying to help the customer see why life insurance is important for them. So you give them the value and then you give them the price. And if they hit you with an objection, that is a true objection. So just always remember that early objections, obstacles, come before you built value, before you've done any selling, and before you've given them the price. Late objections come after you've built value, after you've sold them, and after you've given them the price. The way that we handle each of those is different. And in my experience, these are the details. Into these details is what helped me move through objections, handle objections rather than have the objections handle me. You see what I'm saying? And then the next thing here, I want you to think about here, overcome versus handle. The words that we use matter. And if you think about the word overcome, how does that feel for you? I would assume that it feels like a fight. It feels like me versus customer. And I don't like that. I view myself as on the customer side. And so I choose to use the word handle. So we're not going to overcome objections because it feels like a battle and we're not us versus the customer. Instead, we're going to handle objections. We're on the same team as the customer because we're not trying to prove them wrong. We're just really just trying to help them think in a different way. Okay. The goal that you should have is to get the customer or the prospect to stop, think, and say, "Huh, I never really thought about that before." That's when we know that this is working. Okay. So let's get into it. Here is your framework. And guys, we're going to get into, we've either got 6 or 7 of the most common life insurance objections you will get when you cross-sell life insurance with home and auto. This framework right here will be within each of these objection handles. And there's 4 steps. We've got acknowledge, clarify, solve, and advance. The first step is very important. And a lot of producers, they skip this. And we run the risk if we do not acknowledge someone's objection, if we do not help them know that we hear you, we're listening to you, we're going to have sales resistance in our conversation, the whole conversation. And so when you acknowledge an objection, don't fight it. You need to acknowledge what they said, and you can say something like good deal. Like as simple as that. That is acknowledging an objection. Or I figured you'd probably say that. Or I hear that a lot. Or, that's not a problem. What happens when we acknowledge this objection, we disarm them. And that is your goal with these objections, is always be disarming. I know you all have been taught always be closing. There's a time and place for always be closing. But if you've gotten an objection, there's some uncertainty that the customer's thinking about or the prospect is thinking about that we need to help them move through to earn the right to close them. I think far too often we're skipping the selling part of selling. We think that, we just need to get better at handling objections. At the end of the day, we just need to get better at selling the value. Because you tell me, if the value is there, do people pay the price? I believe that. I believe that if something is valuable to me, I will pay the price as long as it is valuable enough. And so, we're not always closing people. We have to earn the right to close them. And with these objections, if you're hit with an objection, we need to acknowledge that objection to hopefully get the customer's guard down a little bit before we get into trying to move them forward and closing the deal. People know when they're being sold to, and if you have the mindset of always be closing, that's okay. But if you do it at the wrong time, you probably notice that doesn't work for you because you're trying to close people when they're not ready. So we got to acknowledge the objection, get the guard down. And sometimes, guys, what I don't think a lot of sales trainers talk about this a lot, and I think maybe it's specific to the PNC world, but I mean, you're not necessarily leading with life insurance for your business. You're working life insurance into auto insurance and home insurance. And so because of that, acknowledging it sometimes, like your whole goal of acknowledging the objection is to disarm the customer or prospect. And so even if you say good deal, or I figured you probably say that, or I hear that a lot, or no, that's not a problem, and you still don't feel like the customer is opening up to you, you don't feel like their guard is coming down, you might want to take a detour a little bit and keep talking about the auto insurance quote that you're giving them, or go and talk about the homeowner's insurance quote that you're in the middle of. Take a detour from the life insurance so that we can get the customer's guard down. And then you can come back and then you can clarify, right? But acknowledge the objection, clarify what they actually mean. Because here's the deal. Y'all probably have seen this, that a lot of objections aren't real. They aren't. A lot of objections are just knee-jerk responses. And so when we clarify the objection, a lot of the times we'll find out that you said this objection, but it's actually this, or it's actually this. A lot of the times they're staying surface level with you and they give you knee-jerk responses that aren't actually objections. They're just an easy thing for people to say, which sadly stops most producers from going forward. And so people got away with that before. But if they're not just saying it and there actually is a reason, that reason we can get to when we clarify the objection. So ask a question, understand what they actually mean. Most objections are smokescreens that are hiding real concern. Now, after you clarify, now you can solve. Now you can respond. Now you can bring back value. And the idea is you want to help them maybe see it from a different angle, see it from a different perspective. Because y'all are professionals. This is your world. You see people's financial risks differently than they do. You see problems and gaps and exposures in their financial situation with their insurance that they don't see. You know and have seen the severity of this problem with different claims that you have. Maybe you've had customers call in and tell you that someone had just passed away. Like, you've been on the front lines. You know the risks better than these people know the risks. And so the idea is to help them see that problem, help them see this, and maybe stop, scratch their head and say, I never really thought about that before. Help them see it from a different angle, from your angle, the angle of someone that's experiences this every day, that knows that, hey, if there's not enough coverage in place and something happens, this could be financially devastating, not just for a short period of time, but maybe forever. Like, you see it that way, but your customers and prospects don't. And so the solve step The whole idea is to help bring value, take them back to value, help them see the problem a little bit more clear, help them understand things maybe from a different angle that they're maybe not thinking of. Okay, you want to solve it, and then the next step is advance. We don't want to sit in this objection. We want to go to the next step. Okay, we want to move the conversation forward. We want to guide them to the next step. And so if you think about obstacles that come before the price and objections that come after, the way that we advance depends on if it's an obstacle or an objection. Think about it this way. If I haven't given you, I haven't built any value on life insurance, and I haven't given you the price yet, and you hit me with, oh, I can't afford it. Well, I haven't even given you the price yet. And so I go acknowledge, clarify, solve, advance. I'm advancing, and I'm essentially sidestepping your objection and moving forward. And I could say something like this. You know what? I actually hear that a lot. People think it's a lot more expensive than it actually is. But when I end up getting them and showing them how inexpensive this can really be and to get some coverage in place, a lot of people are like, oh, that's it? Well, let's do it. And so because of that, I'm going to at least look at this for you, and you can tell me what you think. I'm moving forward. I'm advancing the conversation forward. Okay. So let's get into some specific examples. This is the stuff that I wanted as a team member. And so my hope is that this just gives you a whole new confidence, a whole new idea and framework, and even scripts for handling each of these objections. So I have it through work. This is probably the most common objection you'll get. It is. Like if you're bringing up life insurance with people, trying to sell it off of auto insurance conversations, home insurance conversations, you're going to hear, I have it through work a lot. Okay. And so here's the framework in action. Acknowledge the objection. Good deal. Or you could say, I figured you'd probably say that. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to clarify. Okay. And so here's a question that's not just going to clarify the objection, but I want you to pay attention to what this question does, what this question causes the customer to think about. So, with that life insurance policy at work, do they like provide a full coverage type policy? Like there's plenty of coverage to come and pay off all of your car loans, your mortgage, replace income for the next 10 years, leave money behind for the kids. Is it like that type of a life insurance plan? Or is it just like a smaller coverage? Okay. Now they're going to give you an answer. They're going to say, oh, well, I don't know, or it's probably just a smaller one. But before we move on to the next step, educate, I want you to think about what this question does. We've acknowledged the objection, and then we ask them this question. Is it a full coverage type policy where there's plenty of coverage to pay off all of your car loans, your mortgage, replace income for the next 10 years, leave money behind for the kids? Is it like that type of a life insurance plan? Or is it just like a smaller coverage? This question insinuates that they should have enough coverage to do all of those things. And then if they don't, what this question does is it seeds doubt. It seeds doubt in their current policy at work that maybe there's not enough coverage. Maybe there's not enough coverage. And notice how this question is set up. Notice that I'm not just jumping right to educating them and telling them that, hey, look, life insurance through work is usually not enough coverage. You need more. You need enough to pay off your loans, pay off your mortgage, replace income for 10 years, leave money behind for your kids. That's what you actually need. Notice how we're not jumping to that. Notice how we're asking this question that's very strategic, that seeds doubt, that causes the customer to think about this a little bit differently than they ever have. And we're guiding the customer to the conclusion in their mind that, oh my word, like this policy is not enough coverage. I need more coverage. And so we're creating a gap, because when we can create a gap, it creates a demand for a solution to come in and fill that gap, AKA getting a policy outside of work, because they're recognizing that what I have through work is not enough coverage. And so this question is very good, and it helps you. I mean, just think about this objection now. Like with this question, you know where to go next. Think about your confidence in your conversations now. And it's a very open-ended question, but it's a strategic open-ended question. It does a lot for you, okay? Now, after they respond, and some people might say, I don't know, or it's probably just a smaller one, you educate them. What do we know about work policies? If you've been working in this business, you know that it's 1 to 2 times your annual salary. So that's what you tell people. Yeah, that's pretty typical. Most work policies cover about 1 to 2 times your annual salary. So we're the professionals, but we don't want to just jump into that before we ask them that question, because we really want to seed some doubt. We want to create a gap here. Now, after you educate them, you can follow up to that question. I guess, would that be enough to pay off the mortgage for Cindy and the kids? That way her and the kids could stay in the house and not have to sell it? And you're asking that question about the amount that they have through work. Would 1 to 2 times your annual salary, let's say it was 2 times your annual salary, Kevin, is that going to be enough to come in and pay off the mortgage for Cindy? That way her and the kids don't have to sell the house out of necessity, but they can keep it, stay in it. Okay. Then you keep going. Here's a second clarifying question that is very powerful that will seed some more doubt. And it's, and with that life insurance policy at work, I guess what would happen if something happened to you and maybe you got sick and couldn't work anymore, or even if you retired or switched job, what happens to the coverage then? Okay. So I want you to think about this question. Again, we could tell them, look, this is a policy that you don't own. But what do you think is more powerful? Me telling you that it's a policy you don't own, or me asking a question that causes you to come to a conclusion in your mind that it's a policy that you probably don't own, and that could be a problem? Notice how this is seeding doubt again. Notice how this is creating another gap. So now we've got the coverage gap and the ownership gap. That alone is going to create more urgency for your customer to want to get some life insurance with you, want to get a policy outside of work. That urgency that we create with the coverage gap and the ownership gap is going to create a natural demand for the next step. And it's going to help you get out of this objection and moving the sale closer to being actually closed. Now, when you ask this ownership gap question, again, we know that the 2 places that work policies fall short, if you look here at the bottom, coverage, there's not enough coverage, and ownership, you do not own that policy. By layering in these 2 questions around the coverage gap and ownership gap, we are getting the customer to go there in their mind. We are getting them to come to a conclusion that I need more coverage and I need a policy that I personally own. Now, a lot of people, they might say, I think it just stays with the job, or I don't know. And then you can come in and educate, you can explain. And I like to do it with an analogy here. So here's what I run into with work policies. I like work policies because they're usually pretty cheap, if not free. Now, why would I say that? Why would I say that I like work policies? I'm going to say that because I'm on the customer's team. And at the end of the day, some coverage is better than no coverage. And I don't care if it's through the employer. If they have something, it's better than nothing. That's my belief. And, I do like work policies because they are pretty cheap and they're free in a lot of cases. And so it's why would you not take advantage of those things? And so, but I don't want to tell someone that their baby's ugly. I don't want to say why are you even getting a work policy? They're awful, because that'll trigger resistance. That'll cause them to feel some type of way about me. And so that's why I'm saying, I like them because they're usually pretty cheap, if not free. Okay. And so they give you some sort of coverage in place, and some is always better than none. Now, where I do see work policies fall short, though, is with the coverage they offer. Most of the time, they aren't providing a sufficient amount of coverage. And one of the major downsides is that you don't own that policy. The company does. It's kind of like a company car. You get to use a car while you work there, but if you don't work there anymore, they generally just don't let you keep that car. It's like a company credit card. It's like a company computer, right? That makes a lot of sense for people. And now we don't want to just sit in this objection. We don't want the customer to say, okay, what's next? We want to take control and we want to advance the conversation forward. Okay. And so then we could say something like this. Look, would it help if maybe I were to look and see about possibly, some coverage to help supplement that work policy so that Cindy and the kids were, to at the very least be able to stay in the house and not have to worry about those mortgage payments? Okay. Now I'm moving this conversation forward to looking into a quote. Okay. So that is the I have it through work objection. Hopefully that helps y'all. The next one is I don't need it. Some of y'all are going to run into this objection. You probably already have. Okay. So let's go through this framework. I don't need it, Coulter. Okay. Good deal. I want to clarify. What do they mean by that? Because here's the thing. They could tell me that they don't need the policy for what reasons? Number one, maybe they don't have any debts. Maybe they don't have anybody that relies on them for their income. maybe they're, maybe they've got a policy. Maybe in their mind, they think they've got a policy and that work policy is enough. Maybe they've got enough money saved in savings and investment accounts, and that's why they don't need it. If we don't clarify what they mean, we're shooting in the dark. We've got our blindfold on. So this clarifying question, we're going to say, I guess, what made you decide that maybe you don't need it? That's a very good question. Okay. And you can use a curious tone. They're going to tell you a reason. Okay. Now, if they don't give you a clear reason, because that's possible, and they stay surface level with you, you can just keep this going forward and try to clarify it and get a little bit more specific and say, hey, when you say you don't need it, is it because like the house is paid off and your income going away wouldn't be a problem and wouldn't worry anyone? Or because like you already have a life insurance policy or a different plan in place? Okay. And so getting a little bit more specific helps the customer, maybe know exactly what they mean, because a lot of people may not even know what they mean. They're just giving you this objection because it was the first thing that came to their mind. But this question, again, think about this question, that second question. When you say that you don't need it, is it because you have like the house paid off and your income going away wouldn't be a problem and wouldn't worry anyone? Is that a question that's going to seed some doubt and create kind of more of a gap here? Absolutely. And then we want to dig into consequences. We want to future pace people. We want them to get to a hypothetical situation that, like, if something happened to you today, what would life look like? Okay. And so here's how we can do it. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I guess what happens like with the cost of burial expenses, right? If they told you that they didn't have a loan on a vehicle, if they didn't have a mortgage on a home, you can ask them like, what would happen to the cost of burial expenses? Now, let's say that they do have a mortgage on a home. You could say, hey, I guess like what happens with like the mortgage or even the vehicle? Like what happens to the Tacoma? Like who would have to pay for those? Or who would have to pay for the mortgage? Who would have to pay for that car payment or deal with the loan? Okay. And then you could say, I guess, would you want Cindy to have to use that money to have to even have this added financial burden? Like if you didn't have to, though, would you want Cindy to, be in a position where she's got to figure out how to pay for the mortgage? Like if you didn't have to, though, would you want Cindy to be in a position where she'd have to just have this added financial burden of the loan, like on top of trying to deal with losing you? If you didn't have to, though? And then we can advance. Again, we don't want to sit in this objection. We say, look, I'm not even sure that we can help. It's a pullback. But if we could, would it help to see what possible options we might have just to have the mortgage paid off for Cindy and the kids in the event of something happening to you? So they're never in a position where they might have to, struggle with this added financial burden. Okay, look, I'm not even sure that we could help you, but I mean, if we could, would it help to see what it might look like to have some money left behind for Cindy to cover final expenses when something does happen to you? Okay. So I don't need it. There we go. Let's go on to the next one. I can't afford it. And I want you to think about this. This is someone giving it to you before you've given them the price. So is this an objection or is this an obstacle? Well, this is an obstacle. And the way that we handle this is going to be different than if we get it after the price, which is coming next. So hang tight. First thing, we got to acknowledge it. Yeah, I can understand that. Clarify. I take it you've looked at life insurance options in the past. And you might get people, okay, you're going to get people to say yes or no. If they say yes, I guess what caused you to want to look at life insurance in the first place? This is a beautiful question. This is something like if they say yes, they've looked at options in the past, what does that tell us? There is some form of buying intent, or there was some form of buying intent at some point. If we can reignite that buying intent, do you think that's going to create more of a demand to get it taken care of now or less of a demand? Guys, at the end of the day, if it was on their mind at some point, there was a reason. If we can get that reason, we might just sell a life insurance policy here. Because think about it. Is Coulter going to buy a life insurance policy from you just because it's life insurance? Or am I going to buy a policy from you because of what that policy will do for me? I'm going to buy what it does for me. Now, the challenge with what we do selling life insurance off of auto and home, because people don't naturally come to us with that buying intent, we're trying to create that buying intent for life insurance. We're trying to create a gap. And a lot of these questions that you're seeing are designed to do that. But If someone has buying intent or had buying intent, we want to go there. We want them to tell us why they've thought about it in the first place, because that's their hot button. That's what they want. And that's what will help you close the deal here. Now, if they say no, that they haven't looked at life insurance options in the past, this is what you say. What I find is that people think life insurance is way more than it actually is. Y'all, here's a little statistic for you. People overestimate the cost of life insurance by 80%. They think it is way more expensive than it actually is. So if they tell you they haven't looked at options in the past and they told you that they think they can't afford it, you say, well, what I find is that most people think life insurance is way more than it actually is. So if you're not opposed, I'm going to at least look at it and give you the option, just so you know, and you can tell me what you think. And we move forward. We advance this thing forward. Now, what if they say I can't afford it after you've given them the price? Well, this is different. This is more of an objection. This is not an obstacle. So we acknowledge the objection. Yeah, that's not a problem. We clarify. We want to clarify that, money aside, do they want this coverage? Do they see value in this coverage for their family? Do they want to have, ideally, their family financially protected? Because if the money makes sense, people will buy. But if people, as long as the value is there, maybe they don't actually see the value in a life insurance policy, but they choose to tell you they can't afford it because they've told other salespeople that before, and that has gotten them off the phone. And so we're really just clarifying this to make sure that if they see the value, then maybe we could push them over the edge and get them to do it if we can really build more value here. But this is going to test to see if they do believe in it, if it is something they see that is valuable. Okay. And we want to dig deeper. If they say, oh yeah, I think it would be good for us. I guess, what makes you say that? Like, because a lot of times, if money wasn't the issue, is this something you feel you would have in place for your family? Say, oh, absolutely. We want to know why they would have it in place. You see that? Because are they buying a life insurance policy, or are they buying what it does for them? They buy what it does for them. People buy the benefits. They're selfishly thinking. And so when we can ask them, well, what makes you say that? They're going to go deeper, and they're going to essentially tell you, they're basically going to defend the reason as to why they would have life insurance. And those are going to, bring light to all their hot buttons. And it's, a little bit deeper is that they're not just telling you why life insurance makes sense for them. They're also telling themselves. And that is a very powerful piece of persuasion, is when people tell themselves. You've probably noticed that before. Notice that, you've got some stories that you're telling about your life or about your childhood. And for some of these stories, it's been a long time that it's actually happened, but you've been telling this story over and over and over again. I would imagine that the story has kind of changed and it's morphed the longer time has gone on, and that you maybe have added some extra things that didn't actually happen, or you maybe forgotten some things that did. And, but you've told this story for so long that it's become, and it almost feels like those things happened, even though they maybe didn't. That's what happens when we, that's just what happens with our brains. And so when we can get people to essentially tell us why life insurance would make sense, it kind of tips the scale of, okay, the value is now outweighing the cost of this policy, and it can get people across the edge. Okay. And so what makes you say that? They're going to go and they're going to explain. And if they stay surface level with you, like, oh, well, I think it would just be good. Dig deeper still. The idea is the purpose of digging deeper is to get them to explain why, right? And if they say, well, I just think it would be good for us. After you say, what makes you say that? Oh, I just think it would be important and smart to have. They still haven't given you what you want. You still haven't gotten them to go and explain why they think that and for what specific reasons. And so you can follow up with another probing question and say, look, so what makes you say that? They're like, oh, I think it would be good for us. Okay. I hear that a lot. When you say it would be good for you, I guess, in what way though? In what way though? They're going to go deeper. And if they're like, well, I don't really know. Well, if you really had to think about it, in what way would it make sense, right? Like you're just getting them to go there. Now, after that, now we can solve this. Okay. And again, notice this other pullback, and this is kind of leading into advance. Okay. But look, I'm sure you already knew this, but I'm not even sure that this is something we could get for you, because you do have to qualify. Now, with that said, we're also not 100% sure what rate you would get. Okay, so this is a pullback. This is starting the solving and advancing of this objection forward. And then we advance it. So what I would say we do is just submit an application to see if you would qualify and what rate you would qualify for. And who knows, you might be surprised. But that way you at least know, if it is something you could decide to make sure that, Cindy and the kids are never in a position of struggle on top of trying to deal with losing you. Okay, now, obviously this solve and advance, this only works when you're able to clarify and you dig deeper and you can get the customer to tell you why life insurance makes sense for them specifically and for their family. Okay. So we've got, I can't afford it, before and after. This is another one that you'll run into if you're trying to write life insurance alongside the home and auto at the acquisition of a new household, which you should be doing, by the way. This will help you stand out. This will help your retention. This will help you make more money. And so you should, and I know you're probably thinking, well, I don't want to risk the auto and the home by trying to sell too much and get the life insurance. Guys, at the end of the day, if anything, it actually serves you. Because what happens is if you can put together a package deal for someone where it's their 3 autos, their home, an umbrella policy, and a life insurance policy, you're going to anchor them at a higher price. And just simply by doing that, you're able to strip this thing down if you have to still win the business. So I want you to think about it that way. If you just choose to go autos and home and not the umbrella and life insurance, if you're given an objection, yeah, you can try to handle the objection, but what you can't do is say, well, let's take off one of the cars. Let's take off the home. Let's take off, you see what I'm saying, right? But like if you quote the 3 autos, the home, the PLUP, or the umbrella policy and a life insurance policy, if you get with an objection and you doesn't work to handle it, you can strip down and say, well, obviously we're looking to get the homeowner's insurance taken care of. We're looking to get the cars taken care of. Those coverages obviously need to stay where you need to drive, you need insurance to drive legally. You've got loans on them and you've got your, mortgage on your home. So the homeowner's insurance needs to stay. But of these other 2 coverages, umbrella, life insurance, and go into selling a little bit more, which one makes the most sense for you right now? And they might tell you, and then you just remove the one, but it gives you a place to go next. Okay. So I know what y'all are thinking, but I'm telling you, of anything, you can always take off the life insurance if it means winning the business. Okay. But it gives you more benefits than there is cons or downsides of trying to do it. So I just want the car insurance. Okay. And again, could this come up before you've given value and before you've, given them the price? Sure. It could be more of an obstacle, which we might handle a little bit different than it would if it's coming up after you've delivered the value, after you've given them the price. So let's just go through this. Okay, I just want the car insurance. Let's clarify this thing. Okay, great. Let me ask you, is it the coverage you don't want or the payment you don't want? Now, if they say it's the payment, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Most people tell me the same thing before hearing the price. They think it's going to be a lot more expensive than it actually is. But I find that when I do get them the price, they always seem to ask me, I can get all of that coverage for that price? Well, that's it. So I'll just look at it for you and you can always tell me what you want to do. Okay, so obviously this is an early objection, as we can see at the top here. Okay, so this has become before the price. If it's a payment, we haven't even given them the price yet. And, that's just an easy way to sidestep this thing, get into delivering value, and earn the right to, essentially get them a quote. I got to wet the palate. My word. All right. Hopefully this is helping, though. Hopefully you feel like I'm not just staying surface level. Hopefully you feel like this is super tactical. And, quick plug, obviously I don't do this for free, but honestly, like, I want to give because of how this stuff changed my life financially, learning how to sell and helping other producers, customer service reps, agencies make life insurance part of what they do. Like, it's changed a lot of agencies. And so I'm on a mission to help you, but we do this type of training twice a week where I'm running calls with our group on every single nuance of selling life insurance in this industry, to selling a small policy initially to making that policy worth more. So there's always, there's a link in the description. You can always jump to that and get in contact with us if this is something you feel like could help. Okay. And my only ask is to share with your friends. Okay. Share with your people. So I digress. Here we go. Let's go on. So if it's the coverage, you say, hey, let me ask you, is it the coverage you don't want or the payment that you don't want? They say, oh, it's actually the coverage. Here's what I'll say. That's not a problem. Most people that tell me that have like really good health insurance with like $0 deductibles. They don't have any car loan debt, no mortgage debt, no credit card debt. They don't have to, essentially go to work anymore to make money because they've got money. They're empty nesters. They have a plethora of money in their savings account and really don't have anyone that relies on them for their income. Would you say that maybe that might describe your situation? Okay. And so guys, think about this question. It's not just a question to ask a question. This question seeding doubt at the importance of coverage. Okay. And, I'm going through, well, you don't need life insurance if you don't have car loan debt. Maybe. You don't need it if you don't have a mortgage. Maybe. You don't need it if you don't have credit card debt. You don't need it if no one relies on you for your income, or you're an empty nester. You have a bunch of money, and so forth. Right. And is it possible that a customer might say, yeah, that describes my situation? Yeah, it is. But how many of your customers do you feel like are in this situation? Or all the people that you quote are in this situation? Guys, go look up a statistic. I think it's like the average American has less than 3 months saved in their savings account to basically pay their bills. They could only live with what they have in their checking savings account for 3 months on average. After that, nothing. So most people are not in this situation. I want you to think about this. The people that you get to talk to, the people that you get to serve are underserved in this aspect. A lot of people don't have a financial planner. A lot of people don't have their stuff taken care of financially. And so it's really our duty to challenge them a little bit, because with a small policy, it could change their family's life financially forever. And that is my belief. Okay, so that's how we're going to challenge this a little bit. But if they do tell you no, or they do tell you, yeah, that is my situation, great. Maybe they don't need life insurance. Don't try to sit and handle this if they've already truly got that taken care of. But what you'll notice is more often than not, they're like, no, that's not necessarily the case. Now you're back into it. Okay, see what I'm saying? Okay, the next question is, I need to talk to my spouse. Now, this is always going to be a late objection. Always. It's always going to come after the price, after you delivered the value. What we want to do is we want to acknowledge the objection. Yeah, that's not a problem. We want to clarify. We want to ask question 1. How does Cindy feel about having the stronger financial protection just to make sure that the home and all these other expenses are paid for when something does happen to you? What we're trying to do is we're trying to help this customer feel okay with making a decision. And we're going straight to, how does spouse feel? Not what does spouse think? How does spouse feel about not life insurance? How does spouse feel about you having the stronger financial protection? Why? To make sure the home and all the other expenses are paid for when something does happen to you. It's a beautiful question you absolutely should use. And they might say, I feel like she'd support it, but I just want to talk to her first. Question number 2, the hypothetical. Okay. So I guess what would happen though? If you go to her, you go to talk to Cindy and you explain this. Coulter was looking at a coverage for us that would, pay off the home, make sure expenses are taken care of for you. When something does happen to me, let's say you go to her and you talk to her and she doesn't want to invest in the policy. You don't have the protection. And then something, God forbid, happens. What would she do then? See how we're helping empower this person that we're talking to be the decision maker? And here's the deal. Some of y'all are giving too much. You're believing these objections. You're believing in them too much. You're believing in them too much. And maybe it's because this is how you do business. Maybe you don't make decisions until you talk to your spouse. But I'm telling you right now that not everybody thinks like that. If I tell you I need to talk to my wife, I'm lying to you. I just know I can get you off the phone. But if I tell you that and you ask me these clarifying questions, I'm telling you it might just get me to buy, because you're helping me see things in a different way that I didn't see before. You're helping me go beneath the surface and really think about what life would look like. You're really helping me in a lot of those ways. And you're helping me empower my decision with this specific objection. How does Lacey feel about having the stronger financial protection in place to pay off the home and all the expenses are paid for when something does happen to you? Well, yeah, I think she'd support it. Okay. But like what happens when you go to her and, she doesn't end up wanting to invest in the policy. You don't end up getting the protection in place. And then something, God forbid, happens to you. You pass away prematurely. You're no longer around. What would she do then? Okay. And again, guys, this is helping them go beneath the surface. This is helping them see why life insurance is important, see what it would do for them and their family. And this a lot of times will help you get out of the objection and also help them see it differently. And even a lot of times close deals. Okay. Now, if they stay surface level with you, if they're like, oh, well, after the second question, what would she do then? Oh, well, I guess she'd have to figure it out. Okay. Yeah, no, I actually hear that a lot. I guess, what would that look like for her if she did have to figure it out? Are both you and her working, or is it just you working? And I know you said you had kids, right? Like, who would watch the kids if she had to go pick up a job or a second job? Okay. Now, if they're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it'd be really hard for her. In what way, though? Okay. We want to dig deeper. We want her to go there. Okay. Now, we can continue with this one. Okay. And so now we're going to confirm, okay, I guess, would you want her to have to be forced to, and you're going to repeat back everything that Coulter just told you. Whether he said, she needs to go pick up a job, or she has to get a second job. She would have to sell the house out of necessity. She, be tougher. Well, I guess, would you want her to have to be in a position where she'd be forced to go get a job, forced to go get a second job, forced to sell the home out of necessity. Okay. On top of trying to deal with losing you and take care of the kids. I guess if you didn't have to, though. Like, would you want her to be in that position? I guess if you didn't have to go. Now we're going to advance this thing forward. We don't want to sit in this objection. Okay. We're going to say, look, I'm not even sure that we can help, but if we could, would it help to see what possible options we might have just to at least have the mortgage paid off for Lacey and the kids in the event of something terrible happening to you? That way Lacey and the kids would never be in a position where they might be struggling financially, on top of trying to be emotionally strong for the kids, on top of trying to deal with not having dad around anymore. Okay. Y'all see what I'm saying? Like, this is real stuff here. Okay. Now, if they are persistent, even after you try to handle that objection, they're like, I still want to talk to her. I respect what you're saying, Coulter, but I still want to talk to her. Don't feel any type of way. Okay. Don't feel any type of way. You're not trying to sell people. You're trying to help people make a decision. That's a good frame to think through. Okay. If they still want to talk to the spouse, you're going to say, yeah, that's not a problem. And you're going to sell the exit. You're going to try to set an appointment. I guess, what's your time frame on getting back to me today or tomorrow, just to make sure I'm available? You could say, what's your time frame on getting back to me? Do you need a couple days or a couple weeks? Okay. And you might be laughing, a couple weeks. Well, people, there's a reason I'd say it like that, because I don't need a couple weeks. A couple days is fine. Right. It's great. But you want to set a date and time. You want a commitment. You don't want to leave without another date and time. You don't want to leave with that. Okay. Or without one. And then after you schedule the date and time, you're then going to ask this question. Now, before I go, what parts of what we went over today are you wanting to go over with Cindy, just so I know for Friday? Because a lot of the times you think that the objection is, I want to talk to Cindy, but that's not true. What does he want to talk to Cindy about? That is the real objection we're trying to get in this situation. Okay. And what can happen is, we just want to make sure it fits with our budget. Well, that's not that, I need to talk to my spouse obviously wasn't the real objection. The real objection is they need to make sure it fits within their budget. And you can do one of two things. Number one, you can try to handle the real objection and get an application submitted, which I would recommend. Or number two, you can handle it and know and be prepared for when you call on Friday. Okay. I need to think about it. Guys, I know this is a lot, but I'm telling you, I've yet to see someone that has given this much in this much detail in this much tactical training around life insurance objections in the PNC world. And I would ask you that if you're feeling the same way, if you're feeling like this is valuable, like the YouTube video, please, subscribe to the life insurance training show. I'm going to be doing a lot of this. Get more involved with us. Go follow us on social media. It's Insurance Sales Pro. So we do a lot on Instagram, Facebook. Share this with a friend. share it with a friend. But that's really my only ask here. Okay. And we do a lot of free trainings, free live trainings, and we would love to have you in our next one where we do really a deeper dive into this type of stuff. Okay. And so click the link in the description if you're interested or want more of that. If not, my hope is this has been valuable for you. Okay. My hope is this can change your life insurance production in your agency. Okay. I need to think about it. This is also a late objection. People aren't going to tell you I need to think about it until you've, delivered some value, you've attempted to sell them, and you've given them the price. Okay. Now, I need to think about it is not the real objection. So here's how we find out what is. Okay. We want to acknowledge and we want to sell the exit, just like we did with the spouse objection there at the end. Yeah, that's not a problem. Just so we don't bug you, I guess, how much time do we need? A few days, a few weeks? Okay. Then we're going to set the specific date and time just like we were before. And then we're going to ask the same question in kind of a different way that's going to get us to what the real objection is. Now, before I go, okay, this is after you've got a date and time on the calendar with them. Now, before I go, what were you wanting to go over in your mind? Just so I know what questions you'll have when we talk tomorrow. Okay, and that's going to bring light to the real objection. And again, you can handle it right there, or you'll at least know for your next appointment with them. Okay. And, why am I saying go, like, what are you wanting to go over in your mind instead of what are you wanting to think about? Like, why wouldn't I use the word think about instead of, or why would I use go over in your mind instead of think about? Well, people have heard, well, what do you want to think about? So many times from so many different salespeople, and it just feels salesy that I don't even want them to be connected to that in any sort of way. I don't want them to view me as a salesperson. And so what I'm doing and the words and phrases that I'm choosing to use are very strategic so that I'm preventing a lot of the salesiness from coming in there, because no one likes to be sold to. I don't. You don't. People don't. And so do everything that we can so that people don't feel like that. Even down to your words. It's very important. Okay. And so I need to think about it. So guys, here's what I want you to notice though. With every single one of these objections, there's something in common. By the time you hear them, you are already behind. You're in reaction mode. You're trying to recover. Okay. These scripts work to help you get out of that hole, to help you catch up, but they're really just a safety net. They're not a strategy. Okay. The question is, what if you could structure the conversation so that most of these objections never came up in the first place? My all-time favorite objection, we're going to end with this one, is the one that never comes up. I'm telling you, in my time as a producer, my first 2 years, I wrote 10 life insurance policies a year. I was bombarded with every single objection under the book. My third year, I did 123 life policies. Fourth year, I did 231. Fifth year, 251. Sixth year, over 200. And each of those years, I was doing over 100,000 in annual life premium. And I'm telling you, those years that I produced at those levels, I don't think about my time in terms of I got really good at handling objections. I think about my time, I was just closing life insurance policies. I wasn't getting them because of how I was structuring the conversations, and I was actually getting ahead of them. I was preventing them. Okay. And so I wasn't handling more objections. I was hearing fewer of them. Okay. And so it wasn't that I got better at my responses. It was this right here. It was better timing. Timing is everything in cross-selling life insurance. I don't care how good your script is. If the timing is off, you probably won't sell a policy and you probably will get an objection. We need to be very aware of the timing, because if the timing's on, you're not going to get objections and you will close policies. We also need better triggers. We need to layer life insurance into our workflows. It doesn't need to feel like a separate conversation, a separate policy that's tacked on at the end. It needs to feel like something that complements the auto insurance policy, complements the homeowner's policy, and fits in, it's embedded in, it's layered in, rather than tacked on as an afterthought. Okay, we need a system that makes life insurance feel like it's natural. It's part of everything. Okay. And a big thing that I changed, guys, I stopped saying the words life insurance. I stopped saying the words life insurance early on. because I found out that those were trigger words. They were trigger words. Every time they'd hear the words life insurance, oh, I got it through work culture, I'm good. Okay. And the problem with that is that's where the conversation would stop. I never got to the selling part because they're stuck on what the policy is. And they're stuck on what the policy is because they have certain beliefs about the policy based on, oh, I've got coverage to work, I'm good. They probably aren't thinking that it's not enough coverage or that they don't own it. It's just their current belief. They might also say, oh, life insurance is a scam because great Uncle Jerry had a life insurance policy with this company. And then, he didn't realize it was a term policy, and that term ended, his premium quadrupled, and he didn't like that. And so now his whole downline of kids, grandkids, even great grandkids don't believe in life insurance. And so instead of leading with the product, lead with the problem. Okay? Lead with the problem. And I built a process where I could contextually position life insurance in the moments where customers were most receptive to buy life insurance. I want you to think about that. I built a process where I would contextually position life insurance in the moments when customers were most receptive to buying life insurance. Not every transaction, not every conversation with a current customer or a prospect is created equal in terms of a life insurance opportunity. Some are much better than others. Some are terrible. Some are just not good. But we choose to try to make a life insurance opportunity out of those instead of find the ones that are the highest leverage and build life insurance into our P&C workflows. That is what changed everything for me. So listen, if you want to go deeper on this, I'm hosting a free live training where I'm going to continue to walk through these objections in detail. You can ask me questions. We're going to get a little bit deeper into the tonality, the pauses, how to read the customer. Plus, I'm going to get in the trigger-based system I use to prevent most of these from ever coming up. Okay. And so we're going to get into real live examples of role plays. We're going to, get into why most cross-sell attempts, trigger objections before you even start selling. I'm going to share with you the exact triggers where customers and when customers are most receptive to buying life insurance. And I'm going to show you how we can position life insurance to become so it feels like it's the customer's idea, it's the prospect's idea. And this is the exact framework that I used from going from 10 to 251 life policies a year. That's what I'm going to share. So if you want to register, there's a link in the description here, but you can go to insurancesalespro.org/webinar registration. Get registered. It's free. Seats are limited though. And listen, these scripts, I'm telling you, they're going to help you today. They're going to help you today. Save this, reference back to this. Let this be your objection field guide. But the training that I'm going to be going over, the live training, that's going to change the way that you sell forever. And I'm telling you, you learn it and your whole belief system about selling life insurance in this opportunity is going to change because you're going to see how simple it actually can be and how systematized it can be so that it's not just a one-hit wonder this year. It's not just a big external focus and a lot of focus and energy this year to then it never happen again. It's a system where it happens this year, it happens next year, happens the next year after that, and it all happens at the producer and customer service level. It's not that agency owners are doing this type of stuff, right? Agency owners are working on their business while their team is just pumping out life insurance left and right. That's what we're going to get into. Appreciate you guys. Again, look forward to more trainings specific to selling life insurance in the P&C world. And that's my commitment to you guys. My only ask, share this with your friends. And if you found value in this, go deeper with us. Click the link in the description, get in our next live training, and we will see you in there. Thanks, guys.